My earliest memories of creating art, actually when I was younger, I was really into poetry or like these little books for my friends and stuff. So I think I wanted to be a writer early on when I was really younger. And then when I got older, I really liked copying cartoons. So like, like every other person who draw that over and then making my own cartoons for my little stories and poems. So I think that probably is still what I'm doing, honestly. Like I do a lot of writing and imagine these narratives, and then I kind of build the worlds around that. So, but it's different now, perhaps. I think for me, the question has always been, how do I make it work with life? I have artists in my family, and so I've seen them, struggle through different financial situations, and so I was always like, I don't know how to make this work realistically. I think for me, when I was in college, and I was a double major in art and engineering, and I would just spend hours, with problem sets and hours in the studio, and I didn't really notice the time passing when I was in the studio. Like I can get so focused, like you're just in the zone. I don't know, it's kind of like you have to get it out or you feel like something's not right. And I think that's when I realized, like, this is what I have to do. Like, this is what I need to do. I think figuring out what you're gonna make as an artist is like what your voice is. Like once you leave school and you have these set boundaries and rules and you're just making for yourself, I think figuring out what you want to say. So I think that's a challenge in and of itself. Like, because every time I tell people that, I'm Sri Lankan and Nigerian or any of this, they're like, oh, you should make work about that, right? You should make work about, the immigrant experience or the cross-cultural experience or Sri Lankan experience. But none of it felt very true to what I wanted to say. And so I think when I stumbled across the imaginary or like my own kind of narratives or stories and being able to talk about those things, but in a way that I still felt in control of, that actually felt very powerful to me. I don't know, people couldn't dictate in the same way, like, oh, you have to make, that's not the Nigerian experience, or that's not the American experience, or that's not the Sri Lankan experience, but this is like my experience, and I can, if you connect with it, that's amazing, but you don't get to dictate how I view it. And so I think that struggle, I've gotten a lot of confidence through my artwork actually in talking about those other aspects of my life, because I feel like there's an ownership that I have over the work. This one was actually emotional to see big because it was too big for me to work on it together on my computer. Like I had to work in little chunks because the file kept crashing, and then make a mock-up of what I thought it would look like. So I had a sense that it would work out because obviously I had to measure everything and make sure it fit. But then when I actually saw it come up, I was like, whoa, it's much different. To actually stand and look at it. I really wanted it to feel like a mountain, and also because the creative finale is this amazing light coming down from this window, and it just feels kind of like the spotlight, almost like this natural spotlight. And so I really wanted to feel like you're just looking up, and just the pieces were in the sun. And so I think it really worked out that way. I mean, of course, my experience of being a Black woman has an effect on everything I do. I think there's a lot of different ways that it's expected. I think sometimes people are shocked, one, when they see my work, because I tell them I'm an artist or something, they're like, oh, okay, and then they see it and they're like, oh. There's also a thing that, Black artists are kind of they have to make Black work, or that we're put into a box of what's expected. And I think that's especially true. A lot of Black artists are figurative, they draw people, and I draw people. So sometimes I've felt before this feeling of I'm stuck in this box of I have to make work that is a certain thing or is about a certain thing. And I've talked about how the imaginary can help free me from those restrictions. I think as artists, we don't have control over how people will respond to the work. You make the work, I think you put all you can into it and hope that there's something there that people will connect to, and then you let go. And they honestly take on a life of themselves. I don't feel like I have ownership over what the work means, but I'm just there to just pass it through. And so sometimes I agree, sometimes I don't, but I don't think there's a right or wrong way of responding. And I think that's what's great about visual art, is that there's the maker, but there's the audience, and they're both actively in conversation to create meaning. So for me, when I hear responses, I try and use that to say, like, why are people thinking that? Like, what is it about what I've done? And try to use that to inform what I do next. So that if I want to push certain things, I can. And if I'm like, that's actually nowhere close, then I make edits to be like, actually, I need to play this up more because people are reading it more this way. That people have expectations of what you should be, or what being Asian is, or what being Black is. And they're confused about it because they haven't seen it, but I'm not confused because I've lived it and I've experienced it. And so that's for me what like taking up space has meant, is like, you know, literally the work is big and literally it takes up space and you have to pay attention, but you being very confident in your story and your imaginary and in what you're saying and making it real and viable, like through the artwork, has then like made me feel more confident. It's kind of like fed back in. It's like a loop almost. I do enjoy the daydreaming and the fantasizing of the spaces and what happens next, but I think outside of my art and my creative practice, I'm actually a very practical person. It's hard for me to just be like, I don't know, I believe in like, you know, like you gotta work hard, you gotta strategize, you gotta plan, you gotta push. So all of that is a very big part of my personality too. So I don't ever get so lost in it. I feel like I got one foot on the ground and maybe like another foot off in the air. And I've always liked to draw big, so I struggle, like initially when I started drawing, like I struggled to draw things small. Like I'm always, you know, like when you're writing like let's say you're writing a birthday card and you're trying to write like happy birthday, and like you run out of space with the Y and you're just trying to squeeze it in. That's me drawing. Like I run out of space at the end and it gets weird and squished. And I remember I had a professor just being like, just add more paper. Like just like don't feel like you need to squish your drawing to make it fit the paper. Just tape on more paper. And so I really take that to heart. Like if I'm drawing, I just start adding more paper and like going as big as my hand wants to go. And that just made the work bigger and bigger, because initially I'm like, I have to try and draw the face this small so I can fit the rest of the body in the paper. But once I got rid of that and just like, so I'll draw the head this big, and then it's like, well, if I want to draw the rest of the body, I just got to add more paper. And then they just started getting like so big. And then figuring out how to exhibit them at that scale. And so that's when like digital started to become a way to, you know, save, because ballpoint pen fades over time if you leave it out in the sun. It's not a great material to like present in a public space. So figuring out how to scan and digitally work and then reprint them so that they're smooth and cleaner was a process that I like refined in grad school. Because as an installation artist, the space is so important. So I think continuing to exhibit in like new, challenging spaces. I'm leaning more towards museums or public art installations where a lot of people are kind of filtering through, as opposed to like selling pieces to collectors. I think I'm really big on that installation experience.
Because it's the most recent. Also, I think it's opening up where the work is going to go in the next couple of iterations. It also feels the most personal to me right now. Some of the others are a little bit more like humorous takes that I have on certain things, like this one in particular. But this one does feel a little bit more personal to me right now.
I think as artists, it's really important for us to listen to other people. I do think that's valuable, to have studio visits, to have crits, to listen to how other people are responding to that work. But I think there's also something about developing like discernment, like being able to listen to what someone says and be like, yes, that is in line with what I want, or no, that doesn't connect with me. And the only way that you get better at that for me is like just to keep practicing, keep making it. It's kind of like knowing someone or having a relationship with someone. Art is so hard already. Like, being an artist is hard. The art world is not as supportive as it should be. And so if you're not staying true to yourself, and if it is taking away from your joy and your soul and what you're doing, then that's just that's too much giving, right? There's too much that's going out of you for it to be sustainable. So if you're not staying true to who you are, then what's the point? Because the joy should be like, I get to make work, like I get to create. There's so many people in this world who don't honestly get a chance to create, whether they have too many responsibilities, or they just weren't given the opportunity, or they didn't have people believing in them, or they didn't have the right specific set of circumstances to make it work. And if for whatever reason you do, and you have that chance and you get to make it, then showing up and making it and being joyful that you can do it is, I think, you know, the least you can do for your work. At least that's how I feel. The least I can do for my work is that I get to make it. And so I'm gonna try and make the most of it for as long as I can.